Jiu Bin immediately aimed straight at Mr. Quach's chest and rushed forward. In front of him, he used his internal energy to impact his heart. Immediately, old Quach was seriously injured and vomited a large mouthful of blood. Even his clothes were torn. His body was thrown backwards, with a loud bang, sending up a lot of dust and smoke. The dog family saw that the expert they invited had been defeated, so they were scared to death and cried out, "Teacher Quach." Jiu Bin slowly approached the fall and said, "Cow family, now it's your turn." He was so scared he knelt on the ground and begged, "Little Jiu family, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me." He came closer and asked, "To be honest, I'm too lazy to take action. Otherwise let's talk a little. How much is your life worth?" His face turned pale. He raised 5 fingers and stammered, 5 million. Jiu Bin leaned forward and clicked his tongue. "Isn't that right, Mr. Kang? Your life is only worth 5 million? Just this one action made him tremble with fear. The dog family was so scared that they stammered 10 million, 20 million. Jiu Bin nodded proudly. "Okay, 20 million to buy your life. Do you think it's worth it?" The dog family didn't dare to say more. "Worth it, worth it." Price. He had a purple face and was sweating profusely. He quickly took out the phone and dialed the phone with trembling hands. "I immediately had someone prepare the money." Jiu Bin pointed towards the man he threw just now and said to the cow family, "What about this person? How much is his life worth? Do you want to buy it back?" He was confused. This. Before he could finish, Jiu Bin used his hand to push the man's head hard to the ground, then raised it again, saying in a serious voice, "If the cow family hadn't, I won't force you if you want, so don't blame me." At this moment, Mr. Cow's face was extremely panicked. No, I buy. His life is worth 20 million, I buy it all." In his heart, he was extremely angry, secretly thinking, Teacher Quach was Mr. Kwang's person. If he died in his area, he wouldn't know how to speak. Hearing the Kan family say that, Jiu Bin immediately said, "Okay." He calmly said, 2 lives, 40 million. Then threw the man to the ground, remembering to transfer it to my account. The dog family immediately knelt down. Yes, of course. Jiu Bin turned around and walked away with a satisfied look. "It's done, that's it." Suddenly he remembered something. "Ah, that's right. Forgot something. Cow family. Tomorrow, remember to personally come to Royal Number 1 to apologize to the Kai family. From then until the Kai family forgives, are not allowed to leave." Then Jiu Bin turned back with a happy face, spread his arms and said to Bu2 and True Kai, "It's over, it's settled, let's go." Then Jiu Bin helped True Kai. True Kai smiled softly and said to Jiu Bin, "This time I have to thank you, Jiu Bin." Do Bin replied, "We are brothers. Why do we have to be so polite? Let's go." Suddenly, there was a scary-looking man, lying on the floor covered in blood. He seemed to be in a lot of pain, but he still tried to speak, pointed straight in the direction the 3 people left and said, "Boy, are you okay? Then save your name, Mr. Kwang will not forgive you, never will." Do Bin heard a voice behind him and said stop. He turned around, looking a bit surprised. Mr. Kwang he just talked about was Lu Kwang. When the man heard Jiu Bin say that, he tried to cover his bloody body and sat up, laughing strangely. Ha. Now you know you're scared, right? He said in a commanding voice, "If you kneel down now and confess to me, I will consider asking Kwang to spare your life." Do Bin arrogantly told him, "My name is Deu Bin. If you want revenge, you can let Lu Kwang come to see me at any time." After finishing speaking, the 3 Jiu Bin men left, leaving 2 men behind with stiff faces. The dog stopped and looked at the man in disbelief. Who is this kid? He certainly wasn't afraid of Mr. Kwang. After leaving the ruined building, Jiu Bin told his friend, Kai family, be careful on the way back. After listening to Jiu Bin's words, True Kai stood in front of the car door and thanked Jiu Bin. "Bin, I really thank you this time." Do Bin stood silently watching his friend's car leave and felt relieved. He stood in front of the machine, accidentally opening a function, reversing time. He scratched his face in confusion and was extremely surprised. "Oh, There is still this kind of skill? Never mind, let's go home first today. Maybe mom is impatiently waiting. He thought as he walked, but unexpectedly, the person behind the cow family was Lu Kuang. He slowly walked step by step, if he came looking for him. The door will be more convenient for me to avenge Tiu Thin. While thinking, a car came. Du Min Vien stopped right where Du Bin was and said, "Hey, Du Bin. We want to go to the prison to play in the village." The young man happily continued, "Ti Gao especially wanted me to invite him to come along." Du Bin was a bit surprised. "Ti Gao, she didn't mention anything to me." Du Min Vien, "Ti Gao didn't want to tell you because she wanted to surprise you. She said she wanted to introduce some friends for you to meet. Let's go quickly, don't hesitate anymore." Du Bin thought to himself. Du Min Vien was suddenly so enthusiastic, he didn't know what he was planning. Iveen generously invited Du Bin, "Quickly get in the car. I know you don't have a car, you can take my car to the village." Du Bin came in surprised. "When I got into the car, there were many people, and there was a girl who said, 'Oh.'" The red-haired girl put down her glasses and said, "This is the person Ti Gao is looking at. Why does he look so poor?" Hearing that, the man next to him said in a disdainful voice, "Oh my god. I don't even have a car. It's too bad. Everyone around me is laughing. Haha, so rustic." Du Min Vien turned around and told everyone, "It's not easy for Du Bin's mother to raise him alone. Everyone sympathizes." A gentle-looking girl spoke up, but I feel, people don't just look at the outside. Maybe Ti Gao looks at his insides?" Bok Vi gloated, "Haha, internally, no matter how excellent she is, can she be better than we try?" The gentle girl just now suddenly thought again, this. In the car, Du Bin asked Du Min Vien, "Didn't you say Ti Gao called me? Where is she?" Du Min Vien turned back to answer, "Ti Gao will be a little late, don't worry." As he finished speaking, he looked to the outside and secretly planned, "Du Bin, this time I will definitely ruin your reputation." He laughed cunningly, he. Du Bin saw his laugh and thought suspiciously, "What else is this idiot planning?" The dark night enveloped the car. It slowly rolled on the pass towards Sun Trang Duc Tu. When they arrived in front of the door, there was a bodyguard with a protruding head blocking the door and asking them to stop. "This is a decorative mountain. If you don't have permission, you can't enter." There was a loud shout. "What are you doing?" Du Min Vien opened the door and got out of the car. He spoke loudly, "I made a reservation in the morning. Why can't I get in now?" The security guard looked at him with cold eyes and said, "Mr. Sao was discussing something in the mansion, and had ordered no one to enter." Everyone stepped out of the car one by one. Bok Vi angrily said loudly, "Du Min Vien, you won't let us go down the mountain after midnight, will you?" Du Min Vien quickly explained, "Didn't you hear what he said? This is Mr. Sao's idea. What else can I do? Who dares to oppose Mr. Sao?" Bok Vi frowned and gritted her teeth, calling her useless. Du Min Vien responded loudly, "Why are you angry with me? If it's good, then come over." At the same time the other group of people are arguing. Du Bin walked up to the bodyguard and showed them the yellow card. Has the word Sao and says, "Brother, can you light it a little first?" Du Min Vien saw him walking towards the bodyguard and said sarcastically, "Why is Du Bin going there? Even if he knelt down and begged, he wouldn't look at you." The bodyguard's hand trembled as he held the card, sweat beaded on his face. He worriedly thought, "Is this really the supreme golden card? What kind of background does this guy have?" Then he and the bodyguard next to him bowed 90 degrees, respectfully greeting, "This distinguished guest welcomes you to Sun Trang Du Tu, wishing you a happy time." Du Min Vien couldn't believe what was happening before his eyes. He immediately cursed, "What's going on? Is that over?" At the same time, Du Bin pointed at the people behind him and asked, "Can other people come in too?" The bodyguard immediately pointed his hand towards the Sun Trang gate and replied, "If he is your friend, of course he can." Du Bin quickly urged them, "Why are they still standing there? Come in quickly, it's too late." A girl happily said, "Come here." Bok Vi folded her arms and looked at Du Min Vien making fun of her, not as bad as a poor guy. Du Vien gritted his teeth, trying to control his anger. He clenched his fists and thought, Du Bin deserves to die. In the middle of the vast mountains and forests, he shouted in thought, to see how long you could remain satisfied. The light shining from the windows was brighter than the stars. Du Bin sat down on the bed and sighed, he was so tired today. His hand touched the blanket and felt something strange, so he wondered if he could move. The blanket suddenly rotated with a shrill scream. Du Bin witnessed this scene. He jumped out of bed in panic and exclaimed, "Oh Mom." The person under the blanket crawled out. It was the blonde girl accompanying Bok Vy. She panicked and tearfully asked, "Why is it you? Where is Bok Vy?" Du Bin was surprised by her appearance in the room. He sweating and said, "This is my room. I should ask why are you here?" After she regained composure, she told him everything. Bok Vy gave me her room card, saying she would wait for me in the room and want to talk to me privately. Suddenly, there was a continuous knock on the door, startling both of them and looking towards the door. Du Minveen knocked on the door and shouted loudly, "Du Bin Ti Gao came to find this guy. Open the door quickly." Bok Vy spoke up. "No need to knock. I have the room card. Let's just go directly in. Let Ti Gao give it to you. He's a big surprise." The blonde girl blushed and said in confusion, "When I got there the door was locked. They wouldn't be able to get in." Du Bin raised his index finger in praise. "Great job." Outside, someone used the room card to unlock the door but couldn't. That person wondered, why couldn't he open it? Du Bin realized their intentions. It seems that this was a trick by Du Minveen and the others. They wanted to catch them. The girl asked worriedly, "So what should we do?" Du Bin picked up the phone. He looked at the girl calmly and asked, "Do you believe me?" She nodded and replied, "Yes." Because Du Bin had not opened the door for a long time, Du Minveen lost his temper and knocked harder on the door. He shouted loudly, "Du Bin, Ti Gao is here. Why don't you open the door? Open the door quickly, Du Bin." Bok V suddenly spoke up and said to Mak Ti Gao, "Why didn't Du Bin open the door? It must not be that he was doing something and couldn't meet that person." Mak Ti Gao believed in Du Bin, so he said, "No, I'm very sorry." "Understand, Mr. Du Bin." Suddenly the hotel director appeared. He bowed his head and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am the director of the hotel in the village. The person in this guest room is a distinguished guest of our Mr. Sao. I hope everyone won't bother anymore." After hearing this, Du Minveen immediately objected. The person inside was clearly Du Bin. "My classmate was not Mr. Sao's distinguished guest at all." The director turned his hand to the next room and replied, "Du Thu, the classmate you mentioned is in the room next door. If you don't believe me, I will ask someone to bring you the room card to confirm." Du Minveen did not believe it. He said in a tone of disdain, "The room next door is the master's room. One day you have to pay 288,888. How can Du Bin stay here?" The waiter brought the room card to the director and said, "Director, this is the room card of the respected room that you need." The director received the room card from the waiter's hand in a calm voice. "If young master Du doesn't believe it, then try to confirm it yourself." Du Minveen quickly pulled up all the room cards. "Try it, I'm afraid." At that time, the director could only call out, "Miss Du." Du Minveen scanned the card. The door opened. He looked uncomfortable. "You guys don't try to fool me." Du Bin just walked out of the bathroom. Seeing everyone in the room, he smiled and said, "Oh guys, are you here? Ti Gao is also here?" Du Minveen's eyes widened in surprise. He asked in panic, "Uncle, why are you here? This is the room of Venerable Sawa. A day is 280,888. Du Bin pointed at the director and explained, "Oh, this director said today is a lucky guest, giving me a free room upgrade." "That's right." Du Minveen pressed close to the director. He was suspicious. I suddenly asked, "Is it true what he said, director?" He firmly replied, "Yes sir, Du." After finishing speaking, the director thought to himself, "Why don't you say directly that you are the one using the room, instead of making things difficult for a worker like me?" Mak Ti Dao looked at him with admiring eyes. "Mr. Du Bin, how lucky." Du Bin scratched his head humbly and replied, "Hee hee for now." Du Bin patted Mak Ti Dao's head and asked softly, "Dao Dao, these past few days how do you feel? Is there anything unusual? Mac T Dao blushed and replied, recently it's been much better. I don't sleepwalk anymore. That thing on my body has also gotten a lot smaller. Bok V stood in front of the door and spoke up in annoyance, saying, this guy Du Bin really has bad luck, but he actually encountered this kind of good thing. Du Minveen showed a sinister look. He snorted and replied, it's okay, we still have one more way. His expression became more threatening and said his plan, he had prepared for Du Bin received a special gift. Du Minveen's words still echoed until the next morning, guaranteed to make him lose his reputation. That was on the morning of the second day, at the campsite in the mountain. Du Bin and Mac T Dao were assembling a camping tent. Suddenly from inside the pink tent, Bok V's voice rang out, who mixed my things? Who is it? She walked out with an annoyed face. Stop mixing money. Even that thing was mixed, really? No shame. Du Minveen was the first to speak. Bok V, don't worry, you've lost something. She shyly replied, I brought a new set of underwear, intending to wear it tonight, but now I can't find it anymore. Young Master Ma rolled up his sleeves and volunteered to help. Bok V, don't worry, I will search the boys' tents. He went into Du Bin's tent and said, let's start from here. Du Bin felt speechless with his actions. I realized their intentions and thought to myself, surely they weren't planning to slander me? His guess was really sincere. Young Ma immediately found the blue bra. He happily lifted it up and asked, found it, is it this one? Bok's criticism was heard. V rang out, Du Bin, are you ashamed? She pointed at Du Bin and said, T Dao, he's actually this kind of person. This situation is exactly what Du Minveen wants. He immediately joined in, haha, it was really unexpected. Mac T Gao of course does not believe that Du Bin did this matter. She worriedly called his name, Mr. Du Bin. Du Minveen pretended to be disappointed. Du Bin, the story about you forcing director Tran to death is still very noisy. I was afraid that you wouldn't think clearly, so I organized today's trip. I really didn't expect you to do this kind of thing. The code name is lacking, but losing things clearly shows a person's dignity, it's worth it. Bok V frowned and reminded Mac T Gao, little lady, you have to stay away from this type of person. Mac T Gao always believes in Du Bin's argument. There must be a misunderstanding here. I believe that Du Bin is not that kind of person. The blonde girl standing next to her spoke up. I also agree with the young lady's point of view. This box hasn't been locked yet. What if someone else puts it in? Du Bin patted Mac T Gao's shoulder reassuringly. T Gao, thank you both for trusting me. I'm very happy. I will prove that this was not my doing. He immediately started the system, using his ability to reverse time. He looked at Du Minveen threateningly, if you want to die, don't blame me for being rude. He immediately stepped back in fear and asked, what do you want to do? Du Bin did not answer. He clicked on the system screen. Immediately a blue light appeared, and the sound of whirring wind rang out. Everyone was sucked into the vortex amid screams. Du Minveen panicked and called out, what is this? The vortex gradually shrunk, then it disappeared as if it had never appeared. Under the sunlight, there was a loud noise, back to 10 minutes ago. At this time, Ma Thu spoke up enthusiastically, Bok V, you can rest assured. I will search the boys' tent. Absolutely not letting this pervert go. Run away. Du Minveen revealed a sinister expression as he passed by Du Bin. Du Bin's face was extremely calm at this time. I have my own plans. Of course these kids have long planned to frame me, but I have already taken the evidence out. Thinking about the object in Du Minveen's pocket, I thought to myself, I put the thing on Du Minveen's body, let's see how he acts later. After a while of searching, Ma Thu stepped out of the tent and announced, I have searched everything, there is nothing. Du Minveen asked again, are you sure you don't have it? Ma Thu affirmed, yes, really not. Have. Du Bin cleared his throat and suggested, stealing something is not necessarily hidden in the tent, it can also be hidden on the body. Hearing that, young Master Ma exclaimed, that's right, if you swipe around, you will definitely find it. Du Bin whistled and raised his hand for young Master Ma to check. Come, check me first. The next person was Du Minveen. He must have raised his hand very confidently and said, "Next came me." Ma spoke confidently for him. Young Master Du will definitely not do such a thing. Everyone knows his dignity and will absolutely not do this kind of thing. Young Master Ma pulled out the clothes in a surprised sound. The blue bra fell down. Young Master Ma's hand trembled while holding the bra and stammering, this. He looked around confused. Apparently, it was indeed underwear. Du Minvin's expression changed. Sweat poured down his face. He quickly explained, "This is definitely a slander. How can I take this thing?" Du Bin immediately asked, "So you mean Bak V is slandering you?" Bak V immediately responded, "You are lying." Du Minvin confusedly denied, "You are saying something nonsense." Bak V and Du Minvin looked at each other confused. They had the same thought, what to do now? Mak Ti Gao put on a face full of hate and questioned, "Minvin, why did you take Bak V's clothes and wear them inside like that?" Du Minvin panicked and approached her to clarify, "I don't know. There must be someone who wants to harm me. Ti Gao, don't listen to Du Bin's nonsense." Mak Ti Gao quickly backed away. She waved her hand in disgust. "Don't come over here." Du Minvin shouted. He scratched his head and kicked his feet to deny, "Ti Gao, you have to believe me. It's really not me." The two girls looked at Du Minvin with disdain. He still tried to justify, "I was falsely accused. You have to believe me." Suddenly a pair of leather shoes appeared. The protruding bodyguard loudly asked who was Du Minvin. At this time, Du Minvin cautiously replied, "I'm Du Minvin. Why are you looking for me?" The first bodyguard ordered two other bodyguards to lead him away. Du Minvin panicked when he was picked up. He tried to scream, "Who are you? Why are you looking for me?" The prickly-haired bodyguards sternly told the rest of them to come along. Next to the car door, other bodyguards lined up in 2 rows. They spoke in unison, inviting everyone. Du Bin and the others were surprised by this situation. Du Minvin's screaming voice echoed in the villa, "Let me go." Even though he was sandwiched between 2 tall and muscular bodyguards, he still tried to hide his fear to threaten that if anything happened to me, you would all die. Suddenly, Du Minvin was pushed to the floor by a bodyguard. He cried out in pain. Mr. Sao sat on the chair and looked down. He commanded, "Where is he? Cut off his right hand for me." Not only Du Minvin but everyone was shocked speechless when they heard this. A bodyguard grabbed Du Minvin's shirt. He screamed and let me go. Even though he was being pressed down, he still struggled like crazy. "You guys let me go. My father is Du Kang. You guys can't tease him." Mak Ti Gao wondered what Mr. Sao and Minvin had done wrong to make him so angry. Mr. Sao heard Ti Gao's voice and immediately called out, "Oh, Gao Gao, come here quickly." Mak Ti Gao walked over and held Mr. Sao's hand. Her tone was pleading, "In front of you. I'm a child, if there's something I don't do well." Still hoping that adults wouldn't accept children, Mr. Sao looked at her with gentle eyes and said, "Gao Gao, there's something you don't know." Then he turned to look at the bodyguard and ordered him to bring the things up here. The bodyguard understood and nodded and replied yes. A moment later a stack of cloth was placed neatly. At this moment Mr. Sao hesitated, "Actually today." He covered his face and shed tears as he remembered the 2 kin flags with the words, "Du Minvin is here," smeared on them. He said sadly, "Today is the anniversary of Grandma Sao's death. I specially invited a high priest for her to make Chinese flags. Who would have thought that this kid would dare?" Mak Ti Gao's eyes widened in surprise. She covered her mouth and blurted out, "This." Seeing the words on the capital's flag, Du Minvin shouted, "Mr. Noi Sao, you are so unjust." His face was pale, tears were flowing from his eyes and nose, and he quickly explained that these words were not written by me. Mr. Sao coldly asked, "It's not you, then who is it? Stand up yourself." Suddenly, Master Ma knelt down and confessed, "Mr. Sao, I was wrong." His face was pale, the smell flowing down his face stuttered to explain, "Mr. Sao, I didn't know this was Chinese chess. I just thought it was interesting so I wrote it. I was really wrong, Mr. Sao." Hearing that, Mr. Sao became even angrier. He slapped his hands on the chair and stood up to shout, "Someone cut off both of their right hands for me." Du Minveen and Young Ma were held and dragged to the floor by 2 bodyguards. Du Minveen screamed in fear, "Mr. Sao. The words were not written by me, so why do you want to cut off my hand?" Young Master Ma screamed even more pitifully. He tearfully begged, "Mr. Sao, I won't dare anymore in the future, please forgive me." The atmosphere in the room was falling. Everyone looked at each other in fear, really tight. Du Bin loudly stopped. "Wait, Mr. Sao, you can't cut off their hands." Du Bin still spoke up to help. After all, they did wrong, but if he cut off their hands today, it would have no effect except to increase their pity. Listening to Du Bin's words, Du Minveen was not only grateful but also had the dignity to denounce. "Du Bin, are you deliberately angering Mr. Sao? You are so cruel, yet you want to borrow Mr. Sao's hand to eliminate me." Mr. Sao was surprised by Du Bin's appearance. He said with a happy voice, little Du family, why are you in Duck 2 Mountain Village?" Du Bin calmly replied, "It was just a coincidence that he came to play with his classmates." Du Minveen thought with his mouth open, Du family. Mr. Sao walked up to Du Bin and asked, Du, why did you come without saying hello first?" "He held my brother's hand and blamed himself, letting me blame the homeowner." Mr. Sao warmly said, "If this handsome manner of mine is still suitable for you, then stay for a few days, so that I can receive the Du family very attentively." Du Bin broke his head and replied, "Mr. Sao, you are too polite. I didn't want to bother you, so I didn't say hello." Mr. Sao smiled brightly. He happily asked, "When did the Du family come in?" Du Bin slowly replied, "We just arrived last night." Immediately, Mr. Sao frowned and ordered the bodyguard to quickly go and bring the security guard and the hotel director on duty today to expel me. The bodyguard panicked, "Old man, this." Mr. Sao was angry with the bodyguard's indecisiveness. He cursed, "I had already specially prepared to detect. As long as the owner of the Supreme Gold Card came, he had to notify me. But Du family had already. I've been here for a day, and I still don't know. What kind of business are you guys doing?" Du Minveen was speechless in shock. He sweated and thought, the card that Du Bin used was the Supreme Gold Card. Du Bin came forward and put his hand on Mr. Sao's shoulder and said, "Help, Mr. Sao, they were just careless, especially that director who helped me with a big thing." After hearing this, Mr. Sao calmed down somewhat. He turned to the bodyguard and asked, "If the Du family has said so, how much is the hotel director's annual salary?" The bodyguard bowed his head and answered, 500,000. He waved his hand tiredly, went away, gave him 2 million, then let him go, telling him that the extra 1.5 million was because he had helped the Du family. Mr. Sao asked Du Bin again, Du's intention just now was that he wanted me to forgive these 2 people. Thu Ma crawled to Du Bin, hugged his leg, cried and begged, Du family, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done something wrong. Please ask Mr. Sao to spare my life. Don't cut off my hand. Du Minveen was startled when Du Bin turned to look at him and asked, "What about you? It's okay if your hand is cut off, right?" At this point, Du Minveen quickly knelt down. He tried his best to beg, "Du Bin, right? Something is wrong with me, sir, don't take it to heart." Suddenly Du Bin said, "Mr. Sao, they destroyed the capital flag." He grinned dangerously, "I won't let them go so easily." Under the bodyguard's pressure, Du Minveen still had enough strength to roar, "Du Bin, I've already apologized, what else do you want?" The angry bodyguard slapped Du Minveen with a slap. He spat blood coming out of both nose and mouth. The bodyguard shouted, Du family is talking, don't interfere." Mr. Sao asked, "What did the Du family mean?" He grinned, "I have a way that can not only punish them, but also relieve the nostalgia in your heart." Mr. Sao immediately asked, "Nostalgia?" He looked surprised. "Maybe Du family has a way." Du Bin looked at Mr. Sao, who was still confused about his words. He mysteriously said, "Yes, but certain conditions must be met." Du Bin looked at Du Minveen, who was kneeling, and smiled and asked, "Du Minveen, let me ask you something. I have to answer honestly, are you still a virgin?" Du Minveen blushed when asked that question. The others all turned their heads and tried not to laugh. Du Minvin growled embarrassedly, Du Bin, are you trying to play with me? Du Bin crossed his arms, he smirked contemptuously, he only needed to answer yes or no. The bodyguard standing next to him angrily raised his hand and tried to hit him. Du Minvin, the little Du family is asking, but don't answer quickly. Du Minvin is scared and hastily answered, am I still a young man? Receiving the answer from Du Minvin, Du Bin looked at Mr. Sao and suggested, that's good, Mr. Sao, please let your subordinates leave. As soon as he finished speaking, 5 bodyguards immediately stood around Mr. Sao. He was angry with this action and frowned and ordered, not hearing it. Tiu Du family, all went out. Immediately all the bodyguards obediently obeyed the order. Yes, master, the door slowly closed. After hearing the door slam, Mr. Sao asked Du Bin, okay, Tiu Du family, what to do next? Du Bin immediately summoned the system and asked, what is the identity of Sao's grandmother? Mr. Sao immediately answered, Ja Tu Nhu. Du Bin wrote on the system, first the fake one and said, okay, then he finished the name Ja Tu Nhu. Immediately, the system made a beep and popped up the information of Sao's grandmother. Ja Tu Nhu is female yin, 20 years old, cause of death was murder, current residence, center of hell. Du Bin was stunned as he looked at the system screen and thought, it turns out Ja Tu Nhu was murdered. Du Bin gently touched the screen. He sighed and thought to himself, he had to use another Match King order. He raised the Match King order high and recited the spell, Black and White Impermanence. To capture the soul, strong golden light penetrated the roof, it flew and tore through the space. Suddenly Du Minvin's expression changed, his face turned white. He strangled himself and struggled on the floor, coughing a few times. Mak Ti Dao worriedly asked, what's wrong with Du Minvin? The blonde girl standing next to him cried out in fear, it was so scary. Du Minvin trembled and laughed extremely strangely. His face turned pale, his whole body convulsed on the floor. Everyone looked at his condition and turned pale, speechless. The blonde girl covered her mouth in fear and whispered, this, finally. It wasn't until Du Minvin stopped struggling that someone wondered why he suddenly stopped moving. Bok Vi angrily looked at Du Bin and roared, Du Bin, what did you do with Du Minvin? He calmly shook his head. Bok Vi was startled and turned her head when she heard the voice, why am I lying on the ground? Her face was extremely unsightly. This was Du Minvin standing up with an effeminate appearance. He used his hand to pat the stains on her face. Pants. A watery voice rang out. The ground is so disgusting, so dirty, so hateful. Bok Vi saw the image of Du Minvin. She cursed green beans. Du Minvin, you're such a woman. Mr. Sao's whole body trembled. When he got up, he staggered towards Du Minvin and emotionally asked Tu Nhu, is that you? Hearing someone calling his name, Du Minvin happily called Mr. Sen. Both of them hugged each other and sobbed. Mr. Sao emotionally shouted Tu Nhu is really you? Du Minvin sobbed, Mr. Sen. Seeing this scene, everyone opened their eyes in unison, what's going on? Du Minvin put his head in Mr. Sao's arms and sobbed. Mr. Sao immediately used a towel to wipe away his tears to comfort him, stop crying. Du Bin coughed a reminder, Mr. Sao has 15 minutes left and I have to take Sao's grandmother home. You two should talk about the matter. Mr. Sao understood and immediately replied. It turned out that he had just used the King of Hell command to call Grandma Sao's soul to enter Du Minvin's body. Mr. Sao hugged her shoulders and asked Tu Nhu, I gave you a box before, where did you put it? I searched hard for 20 years but still couldn't find it, Sao's grandmother exclaimed in surprise. Then she became angry and firmly pushed Mr. Sao. Sao's grandmother turned around and pointed at him, questioning me because I was looking for you because of that box, right? Mr. Sao quickly stammered to explain. No. Du Bin was surprised to see the two of them arguing about a box. He wondered about the box and suddenly the phone rang. He turned around and dialed the phone. Kai family, what's wrong? The other end of the line answered, Little Du family, the person you told me to look for. I have found it. Ju Bin immediately asked him if there was anything unusual. Ju Bin was stunned when he received the answer from Tru Kai, that person had died a year ago. Ju Bin turned off the phone, he frowned and thought, the person who killed director Tran was actually a dead person. He rubbed his chin worriedly, thinking it wasn't impossible. Hugh Boy and Tiu Thien were also dead, but they could still act freely and live like human beings. Suddenly Mak Ti Gao ran to him with a face about to cry and called Ju Bin, it's not enough. Ju Bin turned around in panic and asked, what's wrong? He gasped in surprise when he witnessed Sao's grandmother in Du Minvin's body strangling Mr. Sao. Mr. Sao tried to free her hand but to no avail. Mak Ti Dao panicked and cried, calling for Mr. Ju Bin to quickly save Mr. Sao. From behind, Ju Bin used a strong force with his elbow to attack her. Hi! A popping sound rang out. Ju Bin turned his wrist suspiciously and asked everyone before I picked up the phone. You were still fine. Why did you suddenly burst out with aggression? Mr. Sao panted and coughed, waving his hand to signal that it was okay. It's okay. Maybe because the question I asked stimulated her. Ju Bin frowned and sat down to observe Du Minvin lying motionless. He opened his eyes. When he came out, he looked at his pupils and saw that Grandma Sao had been summoned by a ghost. Hearing him say that, Mr. Sao closed his eyes and sighed, he should go. Ju Bin looked at him silently. He held Mak Ti Dao's hand and said to Mr. Sao, we won't bother anymore today. Mr. Sao also did not keep them there. Immediately replied, received Tiu Ju family. His face suddenly darkened and said, okay, Tiu Ju family, then I won't see you off anymore. Then he looked at the remaining people and roared, all standing there dumbfounded, waiting for Mr. Sao to see you off. Ju Bin pointed at young Master Ma and shouted, what are you doing standing there? He mentioned the person lying on the ground foaming at the mouth. Quickly take Du Minvin away to ease Mr. Sao's eyes. Ma Thu understood and immediately carried Du Minvin and replied, okay, when the door opens, everyone hastily leaves. Mr. Sao stood in the house and watched them leave the room. He called out slowly, a subordinate, Sao Ban. The footsteps of that subordinate named Sao Ban made a clicking sound. He knelt down respectfully and said, Mr. Sao, please advise, right now in the Trang Duc 2 parking lot. Ma Thu tiredly threw Du Minvin into the back seat of the car. He panted and said, then puffed. The blonde girl spoke up and said, Ju Bin, come with us down the mountain. Ju Bin immediately replied, this place is only one touch away from the bus. I won't go with you anymore. Closing the car door, Mak Ti Dao also invited Ju Bin, or we should take you there first. You saved them today, they haven't thanked you properly yet. Mak Ti Dao turned her head to Ma Thu and made a hum sound. He's fast. Quickly walked over, turned into a licking dog, constantly using flattering words. Yes, yes, little Ju. I haven't thanked you for saving my life yet. So go, what do you want to eat? You can say whatever you want, it's all up to me. Ju Bin was a little scared and backed away, afraid to say, there's no need. But Ma Thu was extremely excited and continued, that's right. Just now why did you order black and white so impermanently? Can you teach me? Can I worship you as my master? But Ju Bin was disgusted. Pushed his face away. He continued to move his arms and legs excitedly, and with a whooshing sound, a ray of golden light appeared. So cool. Ju Bin waved goodbye. Ti Dao, I'll go first. Mak Ti Dao slowly replied. Yes. Ju Bin walked leisurely. Ma Thu was still gesticulating wildly. When Ju Bin left, I'm still shouting and reminding you from behind. If you have a task, master, just tell me. Even if you have to go up a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, first one will fall and the next one will advance. Even if you die, it will be completed. Ju Bin was scared and ran away, but Ma Thu continued to shout, Master, if there's something wrong, please look for me. Ma Thu thought to himself, as expected of his master, he's so handsome even when running. Very handsome. Soon Ju Bin had reached the bus stop, but at this moment the wind was howling again. He secretly sighed and thought, this guy Ma Thu is really too clingy. Under the rain, Duo Bin picked up his phone to check the time. He wondered, it had been 10 minutes, why the car hadn't arrived yet. The rain became heavier and heavier, and suddenly at the bus stop, another covered person appeared. Duo Bin looked at him and thought, since when was that person standing there? The wheels stopped rolling, the bus arrived. Duo Bin swiped his card and sat down on the seat. He looked out the door and was surprised to see there was no one left at the bus station. He felt a bit worried and thought, where is the person from before? After that, he didn't think too much, just sighed silently and let it go. Never mind, anyway, he didn't come to look for me, just pretend he didn't see me. It's raining a little outside, at the city hospital. Duo Bin was walking thoughtfully in the hospital hallway. Behind him was a nurse yawning. Duo Bin was about to open the hospital room door when he suddenly heard footsteps. He immediately turned his head to look. Opposite him was a person wearing a black cloak looking at him. That person raised his hand to take off his mask, his face quickly revealed. Duo Bin remembered where he had seen this face. He thought to himself, isn't this the same person at that time? Seeing that person leave, Duo Bin immediately chased after him and shouted loudly to stop. He had just turned the corner when he discovered it. The opponent was already in the elevator. Duo Bin could only watch the elevator door slowly close. The elevator beeped and the control panel displayed the first floor. Seeing that, Duo Bin immediately chased after him. He thought to himself, he was definitely not wrong. He was the one who blamed him for killing Director Tran, and even dared to appear at the hospital. Finally arriving, Duo Bin stopped at the end. He stood in front of the dark morgue, panting. Duo Bin slowly walked inside. He said loudly as he walked, if you dare to do something, you must dare to endure it. Get out of here quickly. At this moment, the doors suddenly slammed shut. The loud noise made Duo Bin immediately turn his head to look. Suddenly, there were loud noises in the room. Duo Bin was stunned when he heard something emerge from the body compartment. Not long after, the corpses rose up and surrounded Duo Bin. He looked at this scene and wondered, controlling the corpses to deal with him. Several zombies immediately rushed forward. They rushed together to wipe Duo Bin. A loud bang rang out. The dust cleared. Duo Bin smiled triumphantly and said, unfortunately, his king of hell porridge had not yet been refined. Around him were bodies lying twisted. He said that if he only had this little talent, he would soon give up the idea of killing me. Suddenly the ceiling shook violently. Dark arms stretched out. They came out from the gaps in the ceiling. The system displayed a notification. In the event, King Sejiang appeared. King Sejiang had the second hall of hell. Male gender. Combat power level 9. Difficulty of subduing index level 9. Pay attention to the difficulty of subduing. Please choose carefully. Duo Bin closed the system and said, I want to choose, but in the current situation I can still choose. He clenched his fist, one eye turned red, and said in a challenging voice, come, Qin Kuangvang's force. With the support of Qin Kuangvang, Duo Bin is extremely confident in deploying his power, relying only on you guys to ask to kill me. A stream of purple power surrounded his body, then quickly formed a tornado. This purple tornado swept up all the corpses, causing them extreme pain. Then the tornado gradually dispersed and slowly disappeared. The remaining corpses that witnessed this scene immediately trembled in fear. They were no longer as aggressive as before. Duo Bin Trian opening the spell, he said in a provocative tone, come here. Anyone who wants to try can come up. It seems there is